I need you to hate so I can use you for your energy.
This is Real Sales Talk. Real sales advice from real sales practitioners. Giving you tips on how to dominate your sales quota are your co-hosts, Sean Mitchell and Phil Keene. What is going on, everyone? We are rocking and rolling with Season 7, Episode 9. It's hot here in Denver, Colorado, and it's hot with sales as well. Things are flying off the shelf. I hope you're feeling the same. We are live with another episode, and we've got my friend Steven Rosen. Steven, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm hot in Toronto as well. So, we have probably 3 weeks of hot weather now. But it's been great, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And for the listeners, if you can't tell, Steven has a little bit of an accent. He sounds like maybe he's not from America. Steven, where are you from?
I am from Canada, eh? So anyone who's thinking of coming up here, keep coming. Our housing prices keep rising, so I have no issue with Americans coming up to Canada for the beautiful Great White North.
Yes, absolutely. Now, this we were talking about this a few weeks ago when we were strategizing about topic. You are our very, very first Canadian on the show, so I think it's going to be a memorable one.
Well, that's my goal, is to make it memorable, and I wore a memorable shirt because Canada's red, and it's our 150th birthday this year, so I'm here to celebrate.
Amazing.
July 1st is Canada's 150th year.
Congratulations.
I can't take all the credit, but I'll take some.
I know, you're a sales guy. You should want to take at least a little bit for that.
I'm a sales leader, so I want to pass the credit off to the other folks.
There we go. Okay, so today's topic, we're going to talk about business leaders and how to turn strategy into sales. Both you and I know, Steven, that this is a challenging one because as leaders, we are focusing not on just our team, but also a lot of other moving parts. There's a lot of things that leaders are balancing and juggling. So I'm excited to get into this one because this is where the rubber meets the road. So it's not just a good idea, but it's how you execute on that good idea. 100%. So I'm looking forward to diving in. I want to give I want to give the listeners a chance to get some insight into your background so they know where you're coming from. So tell our Real Sales Talk family what your background is and how you got to where you're at today.
Okay, be glad to. Well, in 1990, I came to Toronto from Montreal looking for riches, and I started my first job as a pharmaceutical rep, actually going to pharmacies, carrying the bag, and quite quickly progressed. Sales was never my area of interest. I wanted to get into finance and high finance and mergers and acquisitions, but got a job in sales and did really well. I should have it up here somewhere, but my second year I won Sales Rep of the Year, and then I quickly progressed into a sales manager, national sales manager, VP. They even gave me marketing to run, which I have no idea why they did that, but they figured they'd throw the ball to me. So I was one of those guys who said, hey, I'll make it happen, whether it was in sales or marketing. I ended up with that company after 10 years running 3 divisions as VP of sales and marketing. And then I was really excited to go to another company, which was a high flyer, again, in the pharmaceutical industry. It was the .com of pharmaceutical in Canada, and spent 3 years there as VP of sales. Took sales from 70 million to 221 with no new products. But of course, we expanded our operations into the US and blew out our brains, and the stock went the wrong way. And I decided that as much as I love the corporate world, my salespeople were more empowered than I was. And someone who's entrepreneurial and who's a driver gets killed in some corporations. And I just went out, started my own business, didn't know exactly what I was going to do. And it's since evolved into helping sales leaders crush their sales numbers.
I think that's fantastic. And we initially got connected through Jeb Blunt. So shout out to Jeb Blunt. I know you also did something with Mike Weinberg, says Instagram. So tell me a little bit about what you guys were talking about.
Yeah, I'm part of this group called the Sales Expert Channel, which there's 64 of us who do regular webinars. I've tried to do one every month and help sales managers in specific knowledge areas. There's some core skills that I talk about for managers. hiring, coaching, business acumen, business planning, and of course, business execution. And I've done all those, and I thought I'd do something different. I love Mike. He's got 2 great books out. I've read both, and we kibitz around, and we joke around a lot. And I said, Mike, why don't we just do something? No PowerPoint slides. We're not going to kill anyone with boring PowerPoint. No pitches. We're just going to yak about sales management. And we actually we had a great turnout. We had one slide which had a fireplace because we called it a fireside chat. And we went back and forth and mostly agreed. There's a few areas we disagreed with. I think Mike was a little upset with me when I called him on something. But we had a great time. We had, we only had 45 minutes. We had questions we couldn't get to because we tried to make it interactive. So that was actually my most fun session. It's good to do things with other folks as opposed to be talking off a PowerPoint slide. So, I was well received. We had close, I think just above 100 people. And I thought it was a great session.
Awesome. So let's continue on with that topic of leadership. And I'd love for you to just address the elephant in the room here. Why
There's many.
Yeah, right. So why is it so difficult for leaders to take that idea, concept, strategy, business plan, quarterly goals, and turn them into actual revenue?
You see, I don't know how to answer that question. Well, actually, I do. I'm just teasing. But, people love strategy. It's sexy. It's fun coming up with, the strategies, the tactics to drive. And then, some folks are very good at that. What you find is most companies actually are gotten very good at strategy. So almost the only difference now is if we have similar strategies, it's the execution part. And you ask me why people don't like it, right? It's boring. It's mired in details. It involves granular thinking, which nobody wants to think granular. How are you going to measure that? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? But it really goes to, if you think of strategy as the what's, execution is the how, and then how are we measuring it to keep it on track? So, if you look at the body of work out there on strategy, there's probably thousands of books written on strategy. And if you look for execution, you could probably find a dozen books on execution. And where I got really sort of interested in the topic is I went out to my subscribers and I said, tell me what your biggest sales challenge is in the upcoming year, except for making your numbers. And guess what? The number one was making our numbers. But number 2 was execution. And I thought, it's true. The one thing that I was very good at coming from, starting in sales from the bottom up is I understood execution. I might not have been the best strategist, but most people you speak to love the strategy component, don't love to get mired in the details and the granular thinking and the discipline of getting things done.
So how do you get from that point to, and this is totally a Phil question for those that are listening. Phil is, I think Phil is doing some on-site meetings.
Where's Phil? I thought it was going to be where's Waldo type of thing. I've been waiting for him to pop out.
So according to Twitter,
that's the best place to go for news next to Facebook.
Absolutely. According to Twitter, he is in Atlanta chumming it up with some of our sales friends. I received a video that he tagged me in. So
very nice. So he's left you here alone with me.
I know. Hopefully we get through this one. Hopefully I can make it through this one without him. No, we're going to do just fine. But so how do you get from that point of strategy to execution? And I'm actually really curious. Let me just kind of drill down a little bit more specifically here. How did you specifically know that you were good at the execution part? And I'm wondering if you can kind of unpack that a little bit and show people a little bit into the mad scientist mind.
Right. Well, going way back in my career, we hired someone from a competitor. His name was Bruce Mitchell. And Bruce worked, we stole him from our competitor. We were very excited. We brought him into the marketing department. And he said, you know what, Steven? The company you took me from has the same strategies that you have. The strategies aren't very much different. The difference is going to be in who executes better. And then I just, I'd look at stuff and really force people to say, okay, how are you going to do that? My sales management background was very much about, okay, how are we going to do it? And you got to break things down into steps to really think it through, right? Yes, I'm going to go get that account. Okay, that's great. I love the enthusiasm. But let's think, in bullet points. Okay, I'm going to call, really to get very granular, but I'm going to book an appointment. I'm going to connect with this person through LinkedIn or whatever you're going to do. It's starting to break down the steps. And, we got good at that. And when I sat in as, I had the role of a business unit head, VP of sales and marketing, I didn't know my products. I wasn't a pharmaceutical expert, but it was really about, okay, these are our strategies. How are we going to make it happen? And I always drilled that down with my folks. And, because you see in a lot of cases where strategies, I used to get lobbed over the fence. Okay, sales, we present at the beginning of the year. Now you guys are running, make it happen. So
totally. So I guess my question for you is what are the things that you do? Is there a formula or an outline that you utilize to take that idea or concept and turn it into action?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you talk about execution, okay, what is execution? Well, one of the ways I define it, and I didn't come up with it, but it's the discipline of getting things done. And when I add on to this, getting the most important things done, because I think companies get too complicated. And when I go back to my days in industry, which were 15 years ago, I used to spend time on my own figuring out my 3 critical success factors. If we did these things really well, we'd be successful. A lot of companies don't do that. And to me, those are the key drivers of what's going to make me successful. Okay. Then the question is, how are you going to do those? So my formula is, what are the critical success factors? Even if you don't have them perfect, but you actually live those. Okay. And then you figure out how you're going to do them. And then you have metrics associated with it. And that's where the key comes in, because if you don't measure it, people don't do it. If you don't inspect it, people don't respect it. I know I got the cliches going here, but at the end of the day, it's, are you measuring it? And where the discipline comes in, where people don't want to be disciplined, is having regular review meetings. Okay, so either it's quarterly business reviews where everybody knows what you're looking at. It's not about fooling anybody. It's how are we doing on these 3 critical success factors and what we said we're going to do. And then it's how are we doing the next quarter.
I know it can be really easy to look at everything that you want to accomplish and get overwhelmed, or at least some leaders might get overwhelmed. So I like that you kind of boil it down to the 3 critical factors, because, it's easy to say, I've got this list of 50 things and I want to do all of them. But what you're saying is narrow it down to the 3 very most important things.
Yeah. And that's really, so how I do it now. In my old days when I was head of sales, I do it myself. And you realize you don't get the best buy-in on that. So what I do with companies is I bring the whole team in. And interestingly enough, you always ask the leader before, what do you think they are? And they tell me, and then I say, well, let's see what the team comes up with. 99% of the time, I haven't had one, the team comes up with the same stuff that the leader's thinking about. But the difference is they get buy-in, they're part of the plan. Because part of execution is the buy-in component. Where, hey, this is my plan. It wasn't, this is the marketing plan, or this is someone else's plan. You get ownership to the plan. So I bring the team in to help actually refine that thinking. And I do it in a very simple way where we just post all the things that people think are going to make them successful. And then we cluster it, and then we come up with themes. And then we say, hey, let's then decide which are the most important.
One of the other things that stood out to me about what you said was having consistent meetings, monthly, quarterly meetings.
Right.
I know this is something that Mike Weinberg is really big on and talks about in his book, Sales Management Simplified. Break that down a little bit more so the sales leaders that are listening to this podcast can understand specifically how to execute on that.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, I learned Mike's formula yesterday. Okay. And he's got 3 specific things he looks at. I forget, 1 is results, 2 is the pipeline, and I forget what 3 was. I look at it slightly different. Okay. So for me, it's, hey, how are we executing against what we said we'd do? Because results, if you look at results, you're already too late. Right? Results are a lagging indicator. You want to be looking at, oh, there goes my voice.
No problem.
Excuse me. You want to be looking at performance, things that are controllable. And that's what you're measuring, is controllables, not outcomes. So, 1, I have a very specific agenda. Okay, how are we doing against our critical success factors? How have you executed? And companies spend a lot of time looking in the rearview mirror. For me, anytime you're reviewing, you do want to see where you're at, but you want to see where you're going next. Okay, and in terms of building a high performance organization, it might be going off on a bit of a tangent, but companies who are 120% of sales, they're killing it. They say, okay, we don't need to have a meeting. We're doing really well. I have a very different approach, and I actually used it in industry. And that's how we tripled sales over the 3 years I was head of sales, is if you're at 120, I want my people, my managers, or if it's sales reps who are reporting to me, to come prepared to say, I'm at 120 today. This is what I need to do to get to 125. So it's always thinking about moving to the next level, and then thinking about the exact things you're going to execute. And I keep it very narrow. I think companies try to do too much. And, the old adage, a jack of all trades, a master of none. I think if you can find 3 things that are critical and do them extremely well and track that you're doing them well, then you're going to get much better performance.
So tracking things.
Yes.
Where do you do that? How do you do that? What does that look like?
That's the really ugly part of it all.
Yeah.
Right? Because first is building your plan, then it's leading execution, then it's the tracking component. And when I help build the plan, part of success in building the plan is developing the metrics right there and then. Right? So you're pushing hard to say, let's get granular here. How are we going to measure that? If it's sales managers coaching, which Mike and I are big on, okay, what percentage of the time are you going to be out in the field? How are we going to measure that? And then actually putting those into a scorecard. Execution is synonymous with the balanced scorecard approach. That's sort of where it transpired. I look at, okay, these are my 3 critical factors. These are the things, so it's developing people. Let's say that's a key, or engaging our people is going to be key to success this year. Okay, so coaching is one, and our metric is being out in the field 75% of the time. Managers report back on that, and it gets centralized into an Excel spreadsheet.
So we've talked about measurables, very concrete things that are being measured in order to execute. But do intangibles come into play at all? How about in making sure that your sales team is engaged mentally and emotionally? Can you talk a little bit about that and how that is connected?
For sure. Now, interesting, we rolled this out with a number of companies, and that became one of the critical success factors that 3 of the companies came up with, was engagement. So we have a survey. We do an engagement survey, as we launch the program. Then we have specific things about, the key to engagement is about recognition is an important part. Building development plans for your people are all sort of synonymous with engagement. So we measure it. We actually do a 30-question survey, see where the organization's at. Then we, every month managers are responsible to find some interesting ways of recognition. Okay, some of them may be simple as notes. Okay, I'm a big believer in I reach back and get them because my notes are just back here, but handwritten notes. Recognizing, understanding what drives people. We get into the why when it's talking about engagement. Why do people get up every day? It's not about the money. As much as all your salespeople tell you it's about the money, you got to peel that back. So we break those down. Let's say it's sales rep engagement. We're going to do a survey. We're going to see where we have to, what areas we're going to commit to work on. We say, okay, guys, what else can you do to engage your people? Well, we can recognize them more. Okay. So every month we've agreed to do some form of recognition. Okay. Engagement, we're going to create development plans for each of our people. So those are check the box things, right? That the managers commit to doing. But as the senior leader, you want to make sure these things are on track, because guess what? We get busy and we forget. As much as we're committed to the plan, unless we come back and say, okay, out of your 10 reps, how many of you developed, or even look at the plans, but let's say how many have sales development or personal development plans? Okay. How many times you've been out in the field? So again, it's coming back to those granular items and discussing them. Hey, if the manager hasn't been out, they've only been out 50% of the time and they've committed to 75, how are you going to get that back on track? Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. Yes. So so measuring, creating strategy, keeping it simple, measuring those things as they go along. That time frame goes along, whether it's day by day, week by week, month
Yeah.
by month. So what's next then? Is it as easy as it sounds, or are there some other things that come into play that help you turn that strategy into an actual revenue?
Right, right. Well, you know, the challenge, what I found, because we just developed this program in 2016, organizations, as we know, are very busy. Your business leaders are very busy. And then how do you get the system in place? That's really the challenge, right? And many of them who I went with said, we have people, we can put it in place. And they struggled for the first quarter to get all their numbers together. So it's really about, once you put the system in place, it becomes, this is the way we do business. It's cadence. And everybody understands it. So it takes a couple quarters to get there. But it requires persistence. Anytime you want to make something happen, you can't just, you have a good quarter, you stop, or you're having a bad quarter, and you think, okay, we want everyone out there. So it's committing to a process of the follow-up. Once the plan's in place, and yes, plans are dynamic, but putting plans to paper, and then having the cadence to follow up on a quarterly basis, that's probably the biggest challenge that we've faced this year with clients. And someone said, well, who owns the process? Right? And I thought about it, and I realized for the first half a year, I own the process because I'm committed to helping them make it happen. Right? And they all, and I say, you guys still committed to this? Yes, Steven, we just need help. Because, you know, one's in acquisition mode. They're integrating things into their business. One has had turnover issues. You know, one has had, you know, loss of exclusivity. Some products are threatened by generics. So every business unit comes across things that are outside what they've planned, right? And then, but you really need, as the leader, to say, hey, I'm committed to this process, and we're going to put it in place. So we've had our bumps and grinds. We're getting close to, you know, July, August will be our second review session, and I think we'll have it by then. So it takes commitment to a process. Otherwise, you know, I'm sure you've worked with bosses who are flavor of the day. You know, I'm not trying to, right? Where today we're talking about engagement. It's critical. We should all be engaged. We should all set notes, blah, blah, blah. You know, I had a boss, and then you read another book, and the next month is we should be shared services. Everyone should be going to shared services. To me, it's, you know, steady for the course. And if this is the course you've agreed to, that, hey, conceptually, you understand that if you execute better, you're going to get better results, well, keep at it. And the companies are having some really good results, except for the ones struggling with some generic issues. But, you know, we just did an engagement survey there, and the reps are still highly engaged.
So let's talk to the sales rep who's listening to this, because I know that we've got both sides of the field here.
Yeah.
How can a sales rep help encourage, support their sales leader with executing on these ideas? So, because this affects them, really. I mean, they've been employed to generate the revenue, meet the quota, and then in turn that benefits them, because then they're being compensated appropriately. So for the sales rep listening to this, what say you to them?
Well, you know, the formula that I use could be used in a territory. When you're doing, you know, assuming you do business planning, what are my 3 critical factors for success? I do it for my own business. Actually, I have it up on my board that you can see here, right? You know, I have 2 of them, but and I always look at them. So as a sales rep, to me, it's the same thing of if you're running your own business. So if you want to say, hey, what do I need to do to be successful this year? Well, I need to build whatever. I need to bring in new business, and these are my 5 target accounts. And then work them. You know, continually work them. You know, if the second thing is, hey, it's growing from existing business, right? And it may tie into the execution plan. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think the same formula can be used as a sales rep to drive business in your territory. And what we forget to do is that critical thinking of what's going to make us successful. And then the critical thing of, hey, this is important to do, and following through. Because as I've been accused of, and maybe you have, is we all, salespeople, entrepreneurs who are always chasing the shiny fish, who have ADD, get onto a new idea and then they're running with that idea and they forgot about all the stuff they built. So for me, it's following through and steady for the course. If you've done good critical thinking, stay with it.
So my thought process goes, leaders develop the strategy, and really the sales reps should also develop their own strategy, and then marry the two so that the sales rep strategy helps support the leadership overall umbrella strategy. So how can leaders help marry their strategy that comes down from executive level to sales reps?
That's a great question. That's a really insightful question. And part of what you have, what good leaders do is communicating what is the key focus. So one of the things that getting your 3 critical success factors is it provides alignment if you do it effectively, and it provides focus. And in my book, I talk about the theory of 8. And the theory of 8 is, if this is what you're focusing on, you keep communicating that. Because it takes 8 times for people to really set in. So, excuse me. So as a leader, and I'm not drinking beer, I'm drinking green tea, although it looks like beer. So as a leader, it's incumbent upon you to be continually communicating the focus. Okay. And just as I run my own business and I coach clients, is I have what's called a focus board. And that has my critical success factors. And I'm continually looking at that. But one of the ways is leadership is hey, if this is a strategy and this is how we're going to execute it, it's continually repeating that this is critical. Okay. And then people get it. And if you measure them and you ask the same questions, for me, I never want to catch anybody not doing what they should be doing. I want them to know what's critical. And then I go ahead and ask them, how's it going with this?
So I've really loved this discussion. I think it's super helpful for not only the leader to help them with how to execute on that strategy, to take it really from concept to actually executing to the point where, that's really what we're measured by, is the revenue, right? So it's taking it from ideation to actual revenue, and I like that it's simplified. And to me, my takeaway is focus.
I'm with you on focus. Yeah. And do less, but do it really well.
And that, I think, is like the core success of a company like Apple or Tesla.
Right.
When Steve Jobs came back after getting fired,
right,
he was, he said, let's do away with all of these other products and focus on 1 or 2 products and make them incredibly amazing.
And the brain can only focus on a couple things at one time. As much as people say multitasking, I don't believe that. Right? We do a lousy job multitasking.
I agree.
Right? To me, it's about focus, and my whole methodology of coaching people is about focus. So a lot of my concepts align, whether it's coaching leaders, coaching people, executing, being successful in business. It all comes down to focus is a critical component. And really, if you want to crush your numbers, to me, if you look at execution, which is really when you look at commercial business, sales and marketing, it really does lie with the sales leaders to be driving that. And that really, to me, is, as I said earlier, a source of competitive advantage. So, your strategy might get you to 100%, but if you're doing a great job executing, that's 110, 115. That's how you can crush your sales numbers. And it takes a lot of discipline to do that. And a lot of organizations are just not there yet. Even the ones who have great strategy processes, like the Procter and Gamble's or some of the large pharmaceutical companies, they have very rigorous brand planning processes. So not to say you can put a monkey in there, but you can put an intelligent young person out of university and they'll do a great job because the process helps them get there. Where it's lacking is, how do you make that, how do you make those strategies work? And how do you make sure that the things you said you're going to do, that you're on top of? And that's the discipline.
Absolutely. So This has been fantastic. We're going to move into our exclusive YouTube content where we ask you 3 rapid fire questions. But before we do that,
Yes.
let's give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about your business. And I heard you mention a book as well. So I want to, if people like what they're hearing from you, I want them to know how they can get a hold of these things.
Thank God I have a copy here because they're all sitting over there and I'm connected. But what I do, my company's called Star Results. We've been at it for 15 years. We help sales leaders, sales executives, and sales managers crush their sales numbers. It's all based on performance through people. We work with the leaders directly. Sales managers, the frontline sales managers who are the key drivers of success. We coach them, we train them, we mentor them, we make them great coaches as well. We help companies execute, which is a new component. We help them hire the right salespeople. So it's all around building a high-performance sales organization that's going to go out there and make a difference and move the needle. How we do it is training, coaching, consulting. But really my belief is the best way to impact people is one-on-one. And companies who understand that can really make a difference in terms of their outcomes.
Fantastic. So where's your website? Yeah, and your book.
Yeah, it's called 52 Sales Management Tips. If you've noticed through this interview, I tend to simplify things. It's a thin book for someone with ADD like myself. No, I'm teasing, but someone with functional ADD. These are tips that I guess several years ago I'd share with coaching clients, and they say, "Oh, that's, I don't know, brilliant," but they think, "Wow, that's really insightful." So I put those into a book of 52. It's available through Amazon or any of the electronic bookstores. You can get it on a Kindle version. And there's some really insightful tips. It's not a novel. If you're looking for a novel, you've come to the wrong place. If you're looking for some short, sharp ideas, that's the way I think and that's the way I operate.
Great. I like that it's succinct. I recently read this one book. In fact, these days I'm listening to the audio version of books, but it was the Miracle Morning, and it just seemed like it droned on, and I kept thinking to myself, just get to the point. I just want to know, like, what are the 10 things that I've got to do to make my days start off amazing. And it sounds like your book it fits my personality. I just want to get to the point.
I'll send you a copy of the book.
Sounds good. I love it. All right, so let's jump into the rapid fire.
Okay, let's go.
So if you're listening to this on the audio version in your car, jump over to YouTube when you get to your desk, hit subscribe, and fast forward to the end so you can listen to what makes Jim Rosen tick. Okay, so first question is, talk to me about a mistake that you made, a memorable mistake that you made as a sales leader, and what you learned from that. What's the first mistake that comes to mind when I ask you that question?
Okay, first mistake. Well, my first sales leadership role, I moved from a sales rep of the year. I don't know if I mentioned that, but my second year as sales rep of the year, they quickly promoted me to sales manager. I thought I was hot shit. And went out and was telling people, okay, this is the way I do it. This is the way I do it. This is why I was successful. And you know what? No one gives a shit. To be honest with you, no one cares, right? And
Yep.
and I have a tip in my book that says, people don't care what you know until they know you care. So as a leader, if you're trying to, bang your chest and say, hey, I'm wonderful, this is what I did, nobody cares. Really, if you want to be a great leader, you need to care about the individual that you're working with. And I quickly learned that creates a mutiny on the bounty, right? Where you've moved from rep, you're with your peers, and here you're telling them what they should be doing. That's a no-no. I made lots of mistakes, to be honest with you. They're flooding in right now.
Me too.
Be prepared for presentations.
Okay, so second question for you, Steven.
Let's get those out of my head.
Besides your book, what's been the most influential book that you've read that's influenced your career?
I'm looking here. There's a great book. I don't even know who the author is. It's called Pitch Anything.
Yep.
Claff. What's his first name? I love some of the concepts in here. Oren Claff. You don't really see it here, but for me, as part of a one-man show, You got to come up with concepts. You got to come up with, you got to produce for your clients, and you got to go and get new business. And I always think on the new business part, it's always challenging, right? As a consultant. So I'm trying to get better at, winning more deals. I think what I do is phenomenal and my clients do, but how do you get new clients to understand that? And hopefully I'm incorporating that a little bit better after 14 or 15 years of doing the same thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard of this book. I haven't read it yet, but I should definitely pick it up because everyone is pitching something, whether you have a quota or not.
I'm hopefully not promoting too heavily today, but not to say that 52. No, teasing you.
Love it. Okay, so last question. What routines do you have? This could be morning routines. This could be evening routines. What routines do you have that you think really have a significant impact on the success of your day?
Right. Well, I'm going to turn my, you see, I've got a big board up here. I've got a couple up in the office, and every day, every night, I try to, the nights I actually do my routine, I do much better the next day. It's what are the 3 things I want to accomplish in that day? And I have them visibly up because I usually sit this way so I can see the board. They're up there. And when I cross them off, it's like, wow, I'm on fire. Get them done by 10 o'clock, I'm really on fire. And that's what else can I do? So I really do believe focus is key. You actually caught on to that because we haven't talked about focus. And I call this my focus board. I did something with Miles Austin on my morning routine. And I said, everyone should have a focus board. Any client I talk to, if they don't have a board in their office, I think you're missing out. You're missing out on really, because you get distracted. I get distracted. I'm at home. You have your share of cute little distractions. There's other distractions. There's CNN or Fox, whatever turns you on. So to me, it's really about staying focused. I've got my critical success factors up here, which stay on the top because I don't change them every day. Those stay, but every day I have my focus, and I do it daily, weekly, monthly, and then my key factors for success. And I don't always accomplish them, but I know they're there. And then when I get, Mondays, actually Sunday nights are my best night because then I really get focused in for the week. And if you're up and running during the day, if you're in an office setting or if you're a salesperson, right, you're just busy running. You have no time to think. So visual, I'm a visual guy. Most people are visual, and stay focused on what's critical because a lot of people say, oh, I didn't get anything done today. And okay, so let's see what's critical. Let's get the critical things done so you can feel good about your day. And all of that for many of us is if we feel good, we perform better.
Yeah, the quote that comes to mind with what you're talking about is the one that says, and I don't know who it's by, and maybe you can fill in the blank there, but the quote that comes to mind in regards to focus is the person who fails to plan plans to fail.
Yes, I love that one. I use it. It's not in my book, but I use it on business planning because most of us don't plan to fail. We fail to plan, right? And that's really, and my belief is it doesn't have to, none of this has to be complicated. Business is about simplification, right? Because, the old days when I was head of sales, we had like 90 people on the sales force. And I always said, if everyone on the sales team understands the marching orders to the lowest common denominator, I don't mean to be mean or whatever, but everyone understands them, I've done my job.
Yep.
And if you throw out too much, the human mind is just not equipped to handle that.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that really is the recurring theme of this one. You got to focus.
You got to focus.
You got to focus.
I have a chapter on focus in my book.
Love it. Love it. Can't wait to read it. Awesome, Steven. Well, thank you so much for coming on and dropping some great knowledge around leadership, strategy, and more importantly, execution and the focus that's tied to that. So, Real Sales Talk family, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate all the fantastic feedback that Phil and I have been getting with LinkedIn messages and Twitter messages. We hear you loud and clear. We're glad that it's providing value. And if you've got a topic that you want us to cover, just hit us up. Until then, we'll see you on the next episode.